Welcome to Freedom Without the Self. This is going to be a series of videos of indeterminate length that will be a mutual exploration of various aspects of life. I find myself in a very interesting position, a very unexpected one, where people near and dear to me, as well as on the other side of the world, actually want to hear these things. And these videos are just for you. If other people tune in, that's great. If they don't, that's great too. It might be better if they don't. But I want to help anyone who wants help. And I don't want anything, least of all, to impose any thought, any idea, anything of any kind upon anyone, especially you. But recently I've had a couple of experiences with a very rare event here in the forest, and that is visitors. In the last month, I've had 2 separate occasions with very close people coming to visit, which is exceedingly rare. It is so rare for any human to come here. But these 2 events that happened in the last month were strikingly similar in many ways. And they led me to this position now, where I sit here in the rain. The camera is dry, so let it rain. And talking to you about these things, these aspects of being free, of living without shackles. And this is going to be very, very deep, but we will wade gently into it. And I don't know how deep we're going to get, because I don't really enjoy making these videos like I used to. So it takes an awful lot of effort for me to do what I'm doing right now. And I'm only doing this for one reason, and that's because I care about you. For, as I said at the beginning, I want nothing. And that's the freedom. If you're thinking about freedom, well, that's the real freedom, is to want nothing. And it's not because of riches. I am the opposite of rich. I live below the poverty line. But I want nothing. I want for nothing. That's I don't even know how many years now, at least 10 years old that camera is. And I'll use it till it breaks. Hopefully that wind isn't hammering on the phone too badly. It's getting really windy. And I love it. So let's begin. A few interesting things have happened in the last few days that really imposed themselves upon me to say, okay, this is what the first video will be about. It's all about memory. And we will be exploring memory quite a bit. But let's begin with an aspect of memory. And some of this you will already know, maybe all of it. But it doesn't hurt to hear it anyways. The way that we store our memories is very fallible. And not only in terms of the one of my projects is called biomechanical. So I'm going to use that word. It's very biomechanical. That's a Georgism, of course. Watch his film for more information. And so that biomechanical storage mechanism is fallible. But more than that, it's not just the storage itself, it's the accessing of it. So even the act of remembering something, bringing it up from your memory and remembering it again, degrades it, changes it, rewrites it differently. And this is something that can affect us throughout our lifespan. Well, not can, it does affect us throughout our lifespan. And I saw this with my own father during the last few years of his life, as he kept retelling the same stories over and over again, especially his favorite one about while he was serving in the army in Croatia, probably 70 years ago or more. Now in 2024. And I noticed the story changing over the years as he retold it. Some elements stayed exactly the same, but some of them changed over time. And the ones that changed over time were the ones that were most cherished to him. And so he was, to quote that old song, accentuating the positive. Now, there's nothing wrong with that, of course, except that when we do these things, when we accentuate the positive and eliminate the negative, and then it gets filed as though that was the original. And over and over and over again, it gets distorted. And all along the way, we are not aware of it happening, except occasionally in the example of storytelling of some prior event. There may be other people who engaged in that event who remember things differently, especially if it was traumatic for them, in which case they're going to be accentuating the negative. And so you can wind up with two absolutely polar opposite versions of the very same lived experience, the same lived event for both parties. And it gets more complicated the more people are involved. And during one of these recent visits, we were discussing a shared event, and I made reference to a very specific event within the larger story, which I will not share with you. But it has to do with my very most successful song ever. So it's not hard for some of you to know what I'm talking about. And just to make reference to this unnamed song, there was a particular session when I was recording a very characteristic part in that song. And I had 17 friends and family all gathered in my, at that time, very small vocal booth of my studio. It was jam-packed. There were so many people in such a small space. It was much smaller than this sun deck that I'm sitting on right now. Probably 1/4 of its size. And everyone was jammed into it. And so you have right there 17 people who were part of something that is being denied by a certain someone today. And so, are all those people wrong? Especially when you can hear their voices on the song in question. Oh my. But there you have it. When someone is reliving something over and over and over again in countless interviews for TV or magazines or websites or whatever, and retelling this story over and over again, and constantly, each time that story is accessed, it changes a little bit to accentuate the positive in that person's perspective, their version of the positive, and eliminate the negative. Meanwhile, to the other 17 people, it's the exact opposite. So you see, memory is a very dangerous thing. We're going to go a lot deeper about memory. Not just this particular aspect of it. We're done with this aspect now. But there is so much more. It's so rich and complex of a topic. And it affects us in every aspect of our life. And the more that we can see the way that it works and the way that it fails to work, the more that we can break free, become free, re-establish the freedom that we were born with, and drop the chains, just like this song, the invisible chains that we've been dragging. I can't remember my lyrics exactly. It's been a few years, many years now actually, since I wrote that particular Zen song. I may remix it actually, now that I think about it. I've got quite a few songs I want to remix. The recent wonderful experience I had with Zulu Matrix redoing Hyperspace has extended the capabilities, taken advantage of new technologies. And I have a new love for the capabilities of sound shaping in the digital domain. Sorry, I shouldn't be talking about that, but whatever. So I may remix that song. So it may, if I decide to do that, that video that I pointed at may, well, I'll leave it up. I'll leave the old one up, but eventually it'll probably be replaced by a new and improved sounding version with previously impossible sounds. Anyways, I digress. And I think I will leave it at that for this first of these new conversations with you. One-sided, two-sided. You can make it two-sided in the comments section. And hopefully it'll be a good conversation between people who appreciate the beauty of positivity, but without eliminating the negative, because you can't have one without the other. And if we get really deep, we may eventually get to the point where both of them become just illusions and delusions.